The other is it's exactly how much Google has control of our press. It's a dangerous entity. They control a vast majority of mainstream media. Uh, Google has been in control of mainstream media for a little bit now. So what they're doing is, if you're not reporting the things that they're wanting you to report, or saying the things that they want you to say, what they're doing is that they're canceling their advertisements. Basically saying, you report as we tell you to, or you don't report at all. We're just going to take your livelihood from you, and that's unconstitutional. We have the right to free press. We have a right for our press to not be politically ran or geared towards a political party, and it's detrimental for the salvation of the rights in this country for it to be like that, to be able to maintain our sovereignty. You lose individuality whenever those rights are taken away. You are then forced to live under communistic means. Socialism and communism are not different. The only difference in them is that socialism, you vote into place, and communism is done by force, which both have happened in this country. These groups of terrorists that are going around, that's exactly what they're doing. They're enforcing communism by force. And we've had states that are socialist. I mean, that's all there is to it, is they're socialist, and they're both unconstitutional. Neither one of them fall underneath the parameters. So the Constitution is a contract between the people and the federal government that they will stay within a parameter, and then all other laws are under the state. So with that being said, the First Amendment is the most pertinent amendment, and then the second one right after, is so that you could protect your First Amendment, because the founding fathers knew what happened if you lost any of these, if you lost these rights. They knew the detriment. They'd been through it. They'd seen firsthand what happens whenever you're not allowed to speak out, whenever you're not allowed to petition your government, when you don't have the right to peaceably assemble or to worship the way that you believe you should be allowed to worship. It's chaos and it's anarchy, and that's not what we are. That's not what we're about, and we shouldn't be about that. I'm not going to dive too deep into it right now, because we're going to have a podcast on the 4th at noon going in depth about a lot of this, but it's been bothering me a lot lately. I haven't really been into politics until here lately, until I noticed that huge, unsurmountable infringements and violations are happening all the way across the board at local, county, state, and the federal level, and that's not right. The segregation laws were immoral, and if they're immoral, they're unjust. For an inequality to be written into the law is an unjust law and an unconstitutional law. No man is above another. Plain and simple. That's all there is. My voice means just as much as yours, as much as the next person, and we seem to have forgotten that. We're letting a very small group of people take over our country, and it's scary. We were given the means to protect these, and we as an American people, we are sitting by and just allowing this to happen, and we're just allowing people to run amok so that we can be viewed upon as politically correct. And if these anti-Nazi, anti-fascist people truly knew what, or where, not what, but where the term politically correct came from, they would stop using it. We here in America after World War II used the term politically correct to make fun of Hitler, because it was a term that he coined, to be politically correct meant that you lined up in his ideologies and he wouldn't kill you over it. If you were politically incorrect, he just killed you over it. And that's where this nation is getting to. You know, if you disagree with somebody, they're physically attacking you. They're physically attacking people all over this nation for disagreeing with them, and it's a violation of our rights. We're tired of seeing it. You know, the whole freedom of press being controlled mainly, or not freedom of press, but the press being controlled by vastly one group that gears towards a single political party is unjust. It's not. That's not fair. That's not a free thing to put regulations on it. That it's no longer free. And they're basically forcing people to report half truths and just straight lies, and that is in a violation in itself. You know, the Bill of Rights was introduced to Congress in 1789 and was adopted in December of 1791. It was written in James Madison's handwriting. And, you know, the amazing thing about this is that Jefferson and Madison did not see eye to eye on how government should be ran. You know, Jefferson felt like that political parties were going to be inevitable and that they were going to essentially be needed, and he believed more of the bigger end of government when it comes to businesses and things like that, the way that England was. And James Madison was completely the opposite. He believed in small government and that the states should rule over themselves, and that is the way that it is set up today, is that we have the rights in the contract with them, but all other laws are decided amongst individuals as states. Now, there are certain acts that go, in certain cases, that go amongst and before to be passed as a right or an amendment, and some of them are even unconstitutional that are in place. The first two are the building blocks of this country. You know, it seems to be that people in this country have forgotten the most basic core principle of this nation, and that's the right to protect yourself and to protect what's yours, and to protect your family and your neighbors. You know, other nations don't have that. They don't have that. And then, you know, you start getting nations like not just other nations, but even here. You know, you get situations of no-knock raids, which is basically a standing military. You know, that's an unjustifiable thing to do to a person. You know, illegal search and seizures. That's it's just beyond. You know, why would you not announce yourself that you're there as a law enforcement officer? You know, they set people up for victimless crimes all the time to I don't know why. I'm going to say to increase their revenue, that it's a monopoly. I feel like all victimless crimes are unconstitutional. If there's not a victim, where's the crime at? You know, plain and simple. The government has overgrown, and it's bigger than what it should be. And you know, it was said by the founders that a faction that was to grow too much in strength would then put the minorities' rights at risk, and that's exactly what's happened. We've had a terrorist group that has joined up with the political party, and they are just bashing people's rights left and right. You got news reporters that are being attacked by law enforcement, and you got news reporters that are being attacked by protesters. I'm not going to call them protesters. Protesters are peaceful. These people are not. These people are terrorists. They're domestic terrorists, and they should be treated as such. Without press, we have nothing. We have absolutely nothing, because without press you can't be informed and you can't be educated on the current events that are going on to make an educated decision on where you stand out on it. And that's why they found that it was so pertinent. Through my study of all this, I found that the founding fathers were the biggest on press. Because without press, you don't have freedom of speech. You don't have the right to petition the government. Because you don't know what's going on to do it. And without freedom of speech, the press cannot report an unbiased truth. And that's where we've gotten to. It's a biased truth. It is not truth. It is not factual. They're not based off of facts. There are very few media sources in this country that are reporting facts. And it's time for it to stop. It's time for there to be a change in this country. You know, if you listen to some of the quotes that the founding fathers made, it's scary. It's, you know, these men had been through it and they forewarned us about it. And you know, over and over again, these men reference posterity, which is future generations. And they're all warnings. They're prophecies to us. It's a warning to us as Americans, is what happens whenever we don't do this. We're supposed to be protectors. We're set up to be protectors, to protect our rights and to protect those around us. Our rights give us the rights to protect ourselves and those around us. You can't attack a reporter for reporting an incident. You can't do that. It's unconstitutional. Not just by the Bill of Rights, but even recent cases presented in front of Congress, it's been shown over and over again it's unconstitutional to tell a reporter that they can't be in an area or that they can't report something. So I don't understand why we as Americans are just laying down and allowing these things to happen to this great nation, because we're about to lose it. We're not taking these people serious. These people are a terrorist organization that are out after your rights. They are out after the American people. They want to destroy what we have, the republic that we have. They want to take that from us. They're not about freedom. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about what race you are. They don't care about preserving anything, protecting anything. All they care about is their opinion coming out of your mouth and you falling in line and conforming, and we will not comply. As for the podcast, I think it's safe to say that I speak on behalf of both of us whenever I say that we will not be censored and we will not be silenced. We both feel called to do this, and we're going to do everything that we can to continue to do this and to report the facts and bring facts to life and expose a lot of these myths that are going on. But it's just disgraceful to sit here and see what's going on around the country, the destruction of these monuments, the destruction of these statues, all these things. I know, a statue, it's an inanimate object, but you allow a group of people to go and violently tear these things down, then what's next? They go into your neighborhoods and burn your houses down. Well, it's there. That's what's happening. They're going to neighborhoods and burning neighborhoods down. There's, gunfights going off in the streets. There's, it's just total chaos. And we've let every person that has gone and spilled blood for this country to be in vain. Plain and simple. To be in vain. Our forefathers, our ancestors, everybody that's gone and fight for this country, we are letting it be in vain. To the whole freedom of press and freedom of speech, the First Amendment thing, we're going to cover that in depth. Some recent events that have happened that are in violation and of controlling it. And you guys, if a law is set in place that is unconstitutional, it is null and void. We do not have to follow it. We do not have to follow it. That is what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are. It's to keep from a dictatorship and from a government growing to have too much power, and we're just laying back and allowing them to gain the power, and we're allowing them to do it through a band of thugs and terrorists. These people are terrorists. They're tyrants. They've committed treason against the American people, and we are just sitting back and we are allowing it to happen. We aren't, I mean, there's little groups here and there that are standing up for certain things and stopping certain things, but we as America as a whole, we need to stand up and preserve what we have, or we're going to lose it. Thomas Jefferson said, were it left to me to decide whether we should have government without newspapers or newspapers without government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. He'd rather be informed than have a government ruling over him. I would too. I would much rather be informed on what is going around me than to have a monarchy or a dictatorship or communism to be in control of me and my posterity and the posterity of this country. We're tired of it, and I think if you guys listen, you might and kind of join in on the chats that happen, y'all might see that you're not alone. There are Americans that are tired of it, and there's Americans that are ready to stand up and take this country back. It's just a matter of doing it. Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. That's another thing that Thomas Jefferson said. It's scary because we're losing it. We are losing it. I am for freedom of the press and against all violations of the Constitution is silenced by force and not by reason. The complaints or criticisms, just or unjust, of citizens against the conduct of their agents. Our agents are the politicians that we've set in place. And they're doing exactly what these men warned us that they were going to do if we allowed this to happen. There was a couple of founding fathers that were for factions or political parties, whichever term you want to use for it, but as a majority of them, they were against them. They saw the dangers of them. Washington's family fled here from England because of the civil wars that were going on in the mid 1700s, created by the politicians that were in England. And these men were not fearful men. They were far from it. These men's families were persecuted for our freedoms and our rights. They hung their children in the streets. They hung their wives, their brothers, their sisters, anybody that was connected that they could get their hands on. They humiliated them, and then they executed them. And we just sit by and we let all this be done in vain. We let every single one of our grandparents that went to World War II to make sure that we're not speaking German or Japanese be done in vain. All of that. And it's time to put a stop to it. We can't continue to willfully be stupid on things. To be sheep. We can't afford to be sheep anymore. It's gone too far. It has gone too far. People's securities and freedoms are at risk here, and we're all at risk of losing them. It's time for the American people to stop and think about what is going on and what are you willing to do to preserve your country. And that's what we're about. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. The functionaries of every government have propensities to command at will the liberty and property of their constituents. There is no safe deposit for these but with the people themselves, nor can they be safe with them without information. Where the press is free, all is free. I mean, just over and over again, every quote, these men are saying that it is our duty to preserve these. It is up to us, the people. It is up to the people. They knew that if you left it up to the government, that it would all be lost. That's why we vote on things. That's why we have debates. That's why we have appointed officials that we vote into office. But when those become corrupt, that is when it becomes dangerous, and that's what's happened. We've allowed our nation to become corrupt. corruption is a fraction against equality. As soon as there is corruption, equality disappears, and without the freedom of press, we have no idea about the corruption that is going on, and we can't stop it because we're not informed on it, and we can't educate ourselves to know where we stand or who's even doing it, because whether Republican or Democrat, neither one of them are for the people. They're for their party. And that's what being party loyal has led this country to. And that's the major issue in this country, is people are party loyal. Voting for a lesser of two evils is still voting for an evil. Why not vote for what is right and what is just? And if it's not right and just and you realize at a time that it is wrong, why are we not petitioning? I feel like people have forgotten to petition, so I feel like maybe my next video will be a video on how to properly petition the government. It's a shame to see what is going on here. I remember whenever I was a kid, people had pride. They wouldn't allow this to happen. You know, states are supposed to be sovereign. And I feel like we've forgotten that. And the best state that I can think of that, you know, and it's because I lived in that state whenever I started paying attention to laws and politics, is the state of Texas. You know, they don't have a law system, they have a penal code. And there's several federal laws that have been put in place that they have rejected to enforce in that state. That's what a sovereign state is. That's how it's supposed to be set up. If it is not constitutional, you cannot enforce it. It's a violation of civil rights. It's a crime against the people in this nation. We just sit back and we allow it to happen. So I'm going to have an article that I'm going to write up about Google and its control over the media. And I'm going to provide links in it so that people can see it. But it's going to be underneath our podcast, under Collie and Zarin podcast. Make sure to go to check that out. We're just two patriots trying to make a difference, trying to expose the truths and the myths. We hope to see you guys out there, and we hope that by coming and seeing us, that you guys will realize that you're not alone, that there are still patriots, and that there are people that still care, and are still Americans that are willing to fight for what is just and true and moral in this country. And we won't be silenced.